why is it that pretty much all of the examples of toxic masculinity from the past, promiscuity, sexual entitlement, hyper-independence, are all traits that are now regarded as boss girl feminist power?
I don't know. I think it might be like a revenge thing. I think young women react to the very worst traits of some men by thinking, I'll just do it back and that will give me the power. So they're like, maybe they've had a string of relationships where the guy has kind of slept with them and then left or something. And then they think, yeah, I'll just do that to the next guy. Or, they look at the men doing that and think, well, they seem very confident and happy. So that's the way to go. I think it's like a defense mechanism of some kind. And also, I think they're probably also the traits that get you popularity online. So if you look at Tana Mongeau or some of these influencers, they are promiscuous, they're quite masculine, they're quite aggressive in their speech, because people who talk assertively and in extreme ways will just suit the algorithm. If you're like a reserved, timid young girl, you're not going to be the top influencer on Instagram. So I think those traits get rewarded, and then they're what girls are scrolling through all day, every day. And they're like, oh, my favorite influencer is really like vulgar and promiscuous and she's super assertive and aggressive.
That's the path to success.
Yeah. And that's the model of like the healed, confident woman who's not held back by negative emotion or worry or jealousy or any of these things.
Assertiveness is confused for self-assuredness or wholeness, completeness, fixedness.
Well, also promiscuity is like, I often think now, if you're like a reserved young woman who's modest, you're now shamed. Maybe not explicitly, but implicitly, people will think there's something wrong with you because they'll be like, oh, no, you are beautiful. You shouldn't be so like shy about guys. You shouldn't worry about sex. It's fine. Like people will reassure her now as to like look at her as if she has a problem that needs healing rather than she just is modest. And I think that's what tends to happen is you look at promiscuity becomes so popular and normalized. And then we stigmatize the girls that aren't interested in that or aren't that way. So yeah, I think if you are a young woman now who holds back in that way, it's kind of like if you're introverted and people come up to you and say, "What's wrong? You should speak more." And it's just like sometimes it's just who you are. So I think it's the incentives again. You're almost punished socially if you're modest and shy and not super assertive and masculine, because people think you've got your like healing work to do. You need to become more confident and like sexual and like get rid of all your reservations and like repression. People think you're just like a repressed person rather than
everybody should be Tana Mojo, whatever she's called.
Like she's like released herself of all her kind of traumas and burdens.
Everybody is Tana at zero.
Yes.
And you just need to try and get back there.
Yeah.
Is there a wistfulness for times of the past? This sort of nostalgia for a better time? I don't know when it was. Maybe before you were born, maybe when your parents were around or something.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know, slightly older generations would have that kind of wistfulness, American dream, etc.
Yeah.
What do Gen Z think of the current moment? Do they think that it's liberating? Because it seems like there's two things going on at once, that life is horrible and terrible and I have anxious attachment and maybe autism.
Yeah.
And also, I'm fully liberated to be myself. I can be whatever I want to be. I can girl boss my way through promiscuity and sell my body on OnlyFans and make loads of money and I don't need no man. Yeah. So which one is it?
I know there's like crippling anxiety among young women, but also this really loud, I don't care message. I think young people in general are very nostalgic for a time they haven't known, which is a time before smartphones and social media. So if you look at like Jonathan Haidt, again, he did a survey recently and found that a lot of Gen Z wish things like TikTok and Instagram never existed. which is kind of unusual. You don't really get that with any other inventions. Like he was talking about the bike and like the hairdryer. Like it's really not that level of I use this all the time and wish that I didn't. And I think there's a lot of that ambient feeling among Gen Z of like longing for a time, for example, when love wasn't like reacting to someone's Instagram story or swiping on Tinder. You know, some young women have never experienced love before it became that. Like the mystery of having a crush on someone and falling in love. Like now you can't wonder what they're up to. You just kind of skip through their Instagram story or look at their Facebook profile and it's all listed out there. So I think there's a real feeling of like disenchantment with the modern world where it's like everything has become so commodified and cheap. And there's like a nostalgia for a time, maybe that didn't exist, but everyone tells me the 90s were way better. So I'm just going to assume they're telling the truth. But a time before phones and the internet and the commodification of everything became so extreme. Because now everything, I try and explain to people like the very concept of things has changed. So friendship for my generation versus friendship for my parents' generation. Friendship now is like your friends online, you maybe have a snap streak that you keep up, you pose for each other's Instagram. You don't really necessarily hang out as much as you used to. There's not really, again, friends don't give each other guidance or tell each other what to do because that would be rude and toxic. And so the definition of friendship has changed in this era. The definition of love has changed, of flirting, everything. Which is why, like, you can talk about kids being on screens and it's kind of sad, but like the actual truth of what's changed is insane. And the fact that young people are anxious and can't cope with it is not because they have a disorder. It's because they're the first to try and feel their way through a completely different world.
Yeah, with no rules or strategies or archetypes or stories, with a generation that can't relate, doesn't relate. You've just taught them how to use the iPad.
Yeah.
What are they going to be able to teach you about how to handle this?
Yeah, and that's kind of why you can't blame them for not giving guidance, because the world moves so fast. There's no wisdom anymore. You can't pass anything down. So now you just have to keep up with the kids.
It's irrelevant as soon as it leaves your lips.
Yeah. And so now you have adults like talking like teenagers and using the same social media platforms, being informed of the new trends, which has always been a thing. But now it feels like adults go to young people to get guidance about the world. And that makes young people anxious because they're like, where are the adults telling me what to do?
Sleep isn't just about how long you rest, but also how well your body stays in its optimal temperature zone throughout the night. And this is where 8 Sleep comes in. Just add their brand new Pod 4 Ultra to your mattress like a fitted sheet, and it automatically cools down or warms up each side of your bed. It's got integrated sensors that track your sleep time, sleep phases, HRV, snoring, and your heart rate with 99% accuracy. It even starts cooling or heating your bed an hour before your bedtime. And that's why it's been clinically proven to increase total sleep time by up to 1 hour every night. I've been using my 8 Sleep mattress for years, and I literally can't imagine life without it. I'm on the road at the moment in London, and it feels medieval to not have an actively cooled and heated mattress topper. It is a total game changer. Best of all, they have a 30-night sleep trial, so you can buy it and sleep on it for 29 days. And if you don't like it, they'll give you your money back. Plus, they ship internationally. Right now, you can get $350 off the Pod 4 Ultra by going to the link in the description below or heading to 8sleep.com/modernwisdom using the code modernwisdom at checkout. That's EIGHT sleep.com/modernwisdom and modernwisdom at checkout. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed that clip with Freya, the full-length conversation is fantastic. And just here. Chop, chop.